Hello and welcome back to the Baggies Podcast. It's episode 8, and guess what? We've had some signings. I'm sure you'll all be more than aware of the signings and the incomings coming into the club, and some very, very strong transfer activity going on behind the scenes as we speak regarding different players which have been rumoured to be joining us for quite a number of weeks now, which will get you all updated on that very, very soon. And of course, you guys have been getting in touch with your thoughts. We played Brighton in a friendly yesterday, which I'm going to talk about as well, whether we played well, whether we played badly or not. And you guys have been giving your thoughts on the Brighton game and, of course, the incoming transfers into the club. So, make sure that if you enjoyed this episode, you drop a follow on Apple Podcasts, Spotify or YouTube, and make sure to drop a download on the episode or a like or whatever you want to do. And make sure to drop me a follow on Twitter as well at the Baggies Pod. But without further ado, let's get straight into this jam-packed episode of the Baggies Podcast. The Baggies Podcast on YouTube, giving you the latest news, views and opinions on all things Albion. Join me every week for a new episode of the Baggies Podcast, available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify and YouTube. So, as I mentioned, plenty to be discussing on this episode of the Baggies Podcast, and I guess we should start with the huge transfer news of this weekend. Well, this week, of the past week, is huge news of Grady Diangana joining West Bromwich Albion on a permanent deal after his very, very successful loan spell of last year, joining for a fee which could rise. It's 12 million to start with the fixed price, and then it could rise to 18 million with the add-ons. It's a club record fee if it does end up going to 18 million. But that's not the end of the story. You know, you think fantastic signing for West Bromwich Albion, but West Ham fans are absolutely fuming. They've got Gold Sullivan Brady out hashtag trending on Twitter multiple times this week. The West Ham fans are really not happy with the decision to sell Grady Diangana, and neither are some of the players, Mark Noble and Jack Wilshere being some of the latest to voice their concerns and their disappointment at the fact that he's been sold. I think Moyes was a fan of Diangana and said that he'd like to keep him involved in the first team, and apparently they went against his wishes, the board. Apparently they wanted to raise funds for defenders. I'm not sure why, because apparently now they're looking at Said Benrahma. I'd take, if you got Diangana already, why would you need Benrahma? I'm not saying Diangana's a better player than him, but surely if Benrahma's if you're going to sell Grady, why would you need Benrahma instead? It just doesn't make much sense to me. I was a bit confused. But yeah, I can't believe that they have actually sold him for that sort of price. It's a bargain. It's a fantastic price for West Bromwich Albion, I suppose. From our perspective, obviously, we love Grady Diangana here at this club. We love the work that he did last year, and it's fantastic to see him back in the squad. I mean, it's fantastic to see him back, and obviously we are welcoming him back with open arms. We're very happy. Not a transfer that we would have foreshadowed. Not a transfer that we would have thought, wow, let's that's the one that we really have to get. It was just one of those that we don't expect West Ham to sell, but if they do, then that's fantastic. It's fantastic if they do decide to sell, and in the end, whether it be the right or the wrong way or the right decision to sell him for West Ham, they have, and we've got a fantastic player on our hand. So now let's go and have a look at Grady Diangana's stats from last year, because I feel like we need to focus in on what a fantastic player that we've got here at the club. Because we have, let's face it, we've got a fantastic player on our hand who's probably going to grow into be an England international. Let's face that. I think he's not far away from that, in my opinion. If you see players like Hudson-Odoi, I don't dislike him, but he hasn't done much for Chelsea, if I'm being honest. I think he got his England debut after only a few games for Chelsea, so surely Diangana's not far in the pecking order for him. A really young talent who's going to be able to skill players. He's going to be able to take players on. But let's have a look at see how he played last season. So last season he played 30 games, 23 starts, 8 goals, 6 assists, and a 7.08 match rating. Is one of the highest average ratings in the league. He was a fantastic talent to have on loan. Obviously scoring lots of goals. The dribble succeeded. 57% of his dribbles succeeded. I mean, he's a fantastic talent, and I think he's going to get on just fine in the Premier League. He's a great player, and I'm so glad that we managed to get him. I wouldn't have expected him to come to the club, but he has. So let's celebrate Radin Ghana, whether it be the right thing or the wrong thing to do. I mean, it's a shame for West Ham because their club is not being ran properly at the moment, and that's a shame. They are a big club, and it is a shame to see them go like this. But obviously, we have to take the benefits of having Grady Dean Garner at the club. Another deal has also come through this week, and that is the arrival of Brighton's goalkeeper David Button, who has signed for Brighton for an undisclosed fee. Apparently, there's I think that's £750,000 or something like that for West Bromwich Albion. It's a good signing. Somebody who apparently not a big high-profile name, but one that is going to challenge Sam Johnston for the number one spot. In my opinion, Sam Johnston has that number one spot all too comfortably. He can make mistakes because Jonathan Bond, just won't come in. He just won't play him in the Premier League. I think David Button's a good player, and hopefully, he will challenge Sam Johnston and push him to Sam Johnston to his limits, and be able to give him a bit of competition for that number one spot. Another signing as well, Cedric Kipre from Wigan joined for $1.5 million, I think it was in the end that they play. We paid for him in the end, which is also a fantastic signing. Not sure if he's going to be first choice immediately. We'll have to wait and see about that. But he is a good player. I remember watching him in that game where Wigan beat us, and he was fantastic. Him and I think it was Leon Balogun on loan from Brighton were absolutely stoked. They were absolute walls in defence. They were fantastic. They managed to keep everything out of the way of the Wigan goal. So that's what made me sort of turn to Cedric Kipre. I did think about it. Before the rumours came out, and I thought, wow, we could slip him in maybe. So let's go and have a look at his stats, because I do like seeing that sort of stuff. I like seeing how they got on last season. I like seeing what they were good at, what their strengths are. So let's go and have a look at Cedric Kipre, now of West Bromwich Albion. Ivorian international, if you weren't aware, but played 36 championship games, 32 starts, 2 goals. 6.67 average rating. Played 2,916 minutes for them last season. Let's have a look at his defensive stats. So accurate passes, he got 1,022, which is 79% of those passes going correct. 70% of his tackles were succeeded. I think he was the least dribbled pass defender who'd play more than 20 games last season as well. 56 interceptions, 142 clearances. I mean, if that doesn't tell you good player, I don't know what is. I think he's a great player, and he's going to do a fantastic job for us, and I'm really glad that we got him. I'm not sure if he's going to go straight in ahead of Bartley or Hegazi. It's going to be Ajayi and somebody else. That second centre back is completely down to anybody else's what Slaven wants. Obviously, there's lots of different choices that he could choose. There's lots of different players that he could. There's Bartley. There is also Hegazi, and there's Semi Ajayi. So it's up to whoever he wants to bring in, whoever he wants to make his number one. So, but there's 3 fighting for that other centre back spot. So I'll be interested to see if we're going to do that. So overall, after having no real transfer business, Mateus Breyer obviously coming in permanently, but no real business until this. And we've had 3 signings in 10 hours from the West Brom training ground, and we're still in talks with Karlan Grant. Karlan Grant still in talks, and also another one is Michy Batshuayi. He's so plenty of transfer rumours coming around. Michy Batshuayi, apparently, another one that's coming up recently on a loan. Apparently, nobody willing to buy him from Chelsea, so they're willing to send him out on loan again. Palace, Newcastle, and ourselves all interested in Michy Batshuayi, Belgian striker. Not a bad player, I have to say. Not a bad player. Will score some goals. I wouldn't want to buy him. Too risky. But there is that chance that he could turn out like Lukaku, and therefore you would want to buy him. So it's essentially a very risky move to buy him. So But yeah, we got Michy Batshuayi perhaps coming in on loan. Karlan Grant, we've been negotiating with him. Apparently nearly come to an agreement over £17 million. £12 million start with, rising to 17 million if add-ons and objective are and if objectives are met. There's still plenty of action to be doing in the transfer market for West Bromwich Albion. Also in the market for Filip Krovinovic. A certain West Bromwich Albion news account, and I'm not going to mention who, said that Filip Krovinovic was meant to be self-isolating in the UK. The next day, he posted a picture of the Benfica training ground, of him at the Benfica training ground. So those claims were rubbish. I even thought, perhaps that could be true if he is self-isolating, because he does have to do that for 14 days, and that would mean he couldn't be announced for quite a while, even if the negotiations were completely done. But apparently still in Portugal, as his Instagram story suggested, which means Filip Krovinovic, whether a deal's been struck or not, is not going to happen just yet, which is a shame. But because we want him back at the Hawthorns, I think he's one of those players that would adapt very well to the Premier League, better than the Championship. Championship, a bit more fast-paced, a bit more aggressive. So perhaps if players aren't rushing on him, he gets given. Same as Sawyers, really. I think if they both get given the time of day, they will prove themselves as fantastic midfielders in the Premier League, definitely for me. So plenty of transfer action happening, plenty of things going around the club. No outgoings this week, no potential outgoings at all. The only thing is that the Callum Robinson and Ollie deal seems to be edging over closer and could be completed when they come back off international duty, which by my calculations is tomorrow. So yeah, plenty of things happening in the West Brom campus, and of course a friendly the other day, which was against Brighton and Hove Albion, which I watched myself, so I'm able to give you a reasonable match report on it. It was a decent game for West Bromwich Albion. I thought we played quite well. We drew 0-0, but you think they're a good side, and we weren't playing our best side either, and I think they were playing, Lewis Dunk, Webster, also Ben White as well. That was their back three. That's going to be their back three next season. Best goalkeeper Matt Ryan, Neil Maupay at front as well, and then the midfield was fairly standard to what they're going to be playing next season, as really wasn't. Probably Mateus Pereira played. Kyle Edwards looked really good. Charlie Austin played up front as well. Charlie Austin looked alright. He looked very laboured, very tired, very unfit. I feel like it might be his chance to just get some fitness. I feel like he just looks so out of shape. It's not a dig towards him. I think he's a fantastic player. I think he'd score goals in most divisions, but he just looked very, very tired this evening, which is a shame in the Brighton game, and that's why we're in desperate need of a striker. However, it was really good defensive shape. We managed to really keep the defensive shape, we really kept Brighton at bay very well. The best chance of the game came to Mateus Pereira, who shot from outside the area and hit the post. So we're obviously keeping plenty of things. We'll be keeping lots of teams at bay this season. It's just whether we can put the ball in the back of the other end. I think that will come down to whether we have a good striker, and that's in the hands of Karlan Grant and Michy Batshuayi, in my opinion. However, you guys gave your opinions on the games when I asked you on Twitter last night, and let's have a look. So Tim says he thought that it was a good result, good workout. Would like to see Connor instead of Gibbs, who will be injured soon. Yeah, I think Connor Townsend was injured with a calf injury, I think it was. That's why he wasn't unable to play. But at the moment, Gibbs is just getting fitness. But however, it is likely that he's going to be able. It is likely that he's going to get injured. He's not going to stay fit all season. It'll be a miracle if he does. However, when he does play, it'd be nice, to see him play. I'd like to keep persevering with him, unless he gets injured. Tyrell says it was an okay result for our last pre-season game. Played some good football at times, but again lacking a striker who makes runs and looks like scoring. Chris also on Twitter says, considering the players we didn't have on the field, it was a decent result against a Premier League team. Stephen Saunders says, a few positive from the Brighton game, but not many. And Arbut says, not conceding is a good sign, but not scoring shows we are short for an additional signing remain vital. I guess it's about time to go and look at what else you guys said. I asked you another question, which was, what would you rate to Grady Diangana out of 10? So Chris says, Dean Garner is a quality signing. Important to have the squad continuity and players of skill and technique level. We are still only getting the squad to the level it was at. This isn't moving the squad forward. So far, Kipre and Button are additions. Button is a backup and Kipre unproven. Absolutely, it is getting the squad to the level it was at. However, if the striker comes in, I think that was always going to be the missing piece in the puzzle last year. If we had that striker, I feel like we would have finished top. I feel like we would have won the league, and there would have been no doubts of us staying up this season if we had a striker all along. But the reason people are doubting us is because we didn't have a striker last year. And that's fair enough, you know. Tyrell Bullock says 10 out of 10. Need players like him who will get us into the Premier. Who will be in the Premier League. Absolutely. Chris says 9 out of 10. Not only a good deal financially for a quality young player, but clearly a fan favourite as well. Stephen Saunders gives it a 9 out of 10 as well, and 10 out of 10 from Paul Garbutt, who thinks it shows ambition from the club, which it absolutely does. And of course, I've said before the game against Leicester, who would you bring in if you were in charge of West Brom? If within the realms of possibilities, who could you bring in? And Tim says we need 2 strikers. Robinson would be okay. Interestingly, Sheffield United don't rate him as Premier League quality. It's weird, isn't it? Because I don't rate Burke as Premier League quality, but I think Chris Wilder believes he can do a job with Oliver Burke. Tyrell says Robertson, Grant and Krovinovic. Hopefully that would be perfect. That would probably, if you can get a full-back in there later on in the window, that would be a perfect window from West Bromwich Albion. And then you'd look at perhaps staying. You'd look at, you definitely got the chance of staying up. Chris says Grant. If not Grant's another young striker. Yeah, clearly the biggest need. It was really evident during the Brighton game how slow Charlie Austin looked. And the fact that Howell Robson-Kanu isn't going to come in and do you the wonderful job that you think he's going to do. I'd like to see Jamie Sewell get involved in the first team. Maybe Ryan Brewster from Liverpool if he's not part of their plans. If he is, maybe not. But yeah, still plenty of time to get in a striker before the Leicester game. But I feel like Grant is the one that's going to be used if we do play against Leicester next week with him. Stephen Saunders says he'd like to see Krovinovic back, Grant in, Henry in, and also Batshuayi, and maybe another mystery one. I'd like to see perhaps a loan come in. Just one. That you just wouldn't expect. Maybe not the one that we absolutely need, but one that would do us a job still. Paul Garbutt says Grant, Krovinovic from Robinson would be great. Would like a good loan player. Batshuayi first choice, and then Deeney. I'd maybe like Deeney as well. He's that sort of person who has some rough edges, so he's going to be able to show his talent at Premier League level, hopefully. And he believes he's still part of the. He's at Premier League level, so obviously he's going to believe that he can still score goals, and I also believe that he's going to score some goals, and I think he will. So hopefully we get some deals over the line before the game against Leicester, which is next Saturday, the Premier League opener for us. I can't really do much of a preview because I don't think our squad's complete yet, but I'm just going to do my prediction. I think we're going to draw 1-1 with Leicester. I feel like we'll concede quite early on, but we'll end up salvaging a point out of it. And I do what we do. I'm really hoping that we get off to a good start, and hopefully that we have a good a good player and a good signing before that Leicester game. I think a striker is in desperate need. If we don't get one before that game, I can see us losing it. But if Carlin Grant perhaps comes in before that game, I can see us getting a point out of that. Maybe even a smash and grab victory. But anyway, if you've enjoyed the podcast, make sure to drop a like on the video if you're watching on YouTube, or drop a follow on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. And thank you very much for watching. Remember, if you want to join our Fantasy League, there is a link on our Twitter page where you can join our West Bromwich Albion Baggies Podcast Fantasy League. Anyone's welcome, so make sure you go and get yourselves involved with that. Make sure you download the episode and follow me on Twitter at the Baggies Pod. Thank you very much for listening, and I'll see you in the next episode after our first game back in the Premier League. Come on, you Baggies, and goodbye.